is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 253. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him... E, little bit of a delay there on the drop. Little bit of a delay for us recording here on our Wednesday. We were about to hit record and my internet exploded. So we're back now. I think we got everything up and running here. So hopefully we make it through episode 253 here. A lot to go through today. How you feeling, my friend?
A little nervous, man. You know, it's going to be all hands on deck here for this Austin team versus a bad SKC club. And we were going through the available players that we were going to have coming up here, man. And it is slim. So if you've been upset and complaining about your playing time, here's your opportunity. Show everyone that they were wrong. Go out there and get us an important 3 points versus this SKC team, as I mentioned, who was not very good. So ready to roll, man. Let's do this.
Yeah, dude, on paper, this is like, all right, it's 3 points, right? On the road. We've done this plenty this year. And then you think about the context and we will get into all that. We'll preview the upcoming match for the first team on the road against Sporting Kansas City. That is a Sunday match. We will also talk about the second team's Friday afternoon road match against Loons 2. And Rodolfo Borrell had his press conference here today, so we will recap that as well, the nonsense at the end. A couple other news items we'll get through before we get into all of that here on episode 253 of the North End Podcast. Just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube channel that you can support the show financially by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. So you toggle on auto downloads, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're getting those pods. That'll support the show going forward. You don't have to think about it again. You can go the extra mile, rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, first, download the audio version, then come back to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, here on episode 253, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords by atoning for your sins, and just like Osman Bukhari, wash yourselves clean in the waters of either end of Q2. Although, just like Brad Stuver, here you go.
So, personally, I like being on the North End.
Look, man, it's not us. Just listen to Bradley Scott Stuver.
I've
been waiting to use that drop for a while.
You've used it before?
Okay, it's been a while, though, right?
Yeah, it's been a minute.
So let's go ahead and get into this, because look, NFL starts tomorrow. We got some last minute drafts here tonight, and we got to get this done in time for those. So first things first, everybody, it is a road match, and we know that now that school is back in session, Los Verdes and their road game watch parties are back. So this Sunday, the event at Austin Beer Works, their Sprinkle Valley location, right? This is 10300 Springdale Road here in Austin. Party's getting started at 5 for the 6 p.m. kickoff. Open to all ages here at ABW Sprinkle Valley. Plenty of free parking. They've got screens both indoor and outdoor that will be showing the game. 2 food trucks on site, La Taquicardia, only open till 7. So if you want some of that, you get in there in the first half. And then Obsidian Pizza open until 8. And if you are a Los Verdes member, you show your membership card at the bar, 10% off beer at the Sprinkle Valley location here for LV members. So last call will be at 8, right around final whistle, and everyone out on their Sunday evening by 8:30. So, man, again, this sounds like a blast. Another LV watch party here on deck, and looking forward to it.
I mean, they always do a good job. There's not much else to say about it.
Yeah, no question. And you know who else does a good job? Always is our buddy Richie, right? Over at Ultra Por Favor. That episode that we teased a little bit on Sunday did drop today. We definitely did finish those 2 bottles of vodka with Richie there, So it's a little over 2 hours of what I think you and I would consider mostly nonsense. But that was a blast with Richie. Shout out again. Thanks again to him for the invite. And the time, the drinks, the conversation. I had a blast doing all that, man. With Richie.
I had a wonderful time. Richie is fantastic. Everything he does for this Austin FC community is greatly appreciated. And yeah, we definitely drank 2 bottles of vodka that night. I blacked out. I definitely blacked out.
Look, I think I planned well first. I ate before we got there, which is not an E staple.
No.
And then I was running my mouth so goddamn much that you guys were just drinking while I was talking. So I avoided a little bit of that. I think in secret that you didn't know, chugged an entire bottle of water during one of our breaks. So look, I'm just holding out on you there, man.
Nah, look, I can't blame
Tricks
you.
of the trade.
It was good. It was good vodka. And Richie good. And I were just pouring that shit every 2 minutes, bro. But yes, it was great. And shout out Ultra por Favor, man. That was fantastic.
So getting into some of the Austin FC news here now. Looking back on last weekend's match day, unsurprisingly, Owen Wolff, and rightfully so, in the starting lineup this time, for the team of the match day. But also of note, Osman gets in there on the bench for the team of the match day. So 2 representatives on team of the match day is something that we haven't had a ton of this year. Like we've snuck, I think for a mid-table team, a decent number of representatives into these weekly awards this season, but getting multiple guys on there and both very deserving for their performance against San Jose. Congrats to Owen. Congrats to Osman.
I mean, it's the best player in the league. Said it last week. This is
20 million.
This is 5 for him.
Is it for Owen?
Number 5 this so far this year, which is just incredible, man. The leaps that he has taken this season have been just a joy to watch. Like incredible. So
it's like what 20% of his games this season, essentially, he's getting named to the top 20 players of the week, around the league. Like, and also we had talked about this a couple weeks back when Owen got named to the 3 young players of the match day, right? Which I think we discovered a couple weeks ago when that happened. Named again to the young players of the match day. And like, there is a young player of the year award here for the league at the end. And like, I don't know if he's the favorite because there are a lot of good young players in MLS, but he's got to be up there with the top 3 to 5 names right now. I mean, at 20 years old and what he's doing, again, like the Owen praise is off the charts right now, but for good reason.
Absolutely. No, it's justified. So keep this thing rolling. He's going to have a big game here versus SKC because we're going to be without a lot of our main contributors. And I have total faith in him that he's going to be able to step up a little bit here and guide this team.
Yeah, so let's talk about this Rodolfo Borrell press conference here. It is 9:30 a.m. this morning on Wednesday. This is something we've been waiting for and expecting since the summer transfer window closed in late August. This was like, I think 85 minutes, maybe a little north of that, which I think sets a record for Rodo transfer window pressers. We know when he gets out there, he loves to talk. So I can, I feel you, brother.
Yeah.
But just some of the highlights, I think, from that, at least from the English language stuff later tonight, going to pull some of those Spanish language answers and run them through our machines here in the North End offices and see what we can do with some translations. Of course, we also have our Spanish language outlets here in Austin that will do some of that for us as well. The team is not planning, according to Rodo, on bringing in any free agents before the roster freeze date on September 12th. So that can't, you can just kind of do away with our hopes that, or maybe not hopes, but our thought that there was a small possibility of the team signing some sort of free agent from somewhere. And I also thought it was very interesting that when he referred to Brandon Vasquez, he called him the team's main DP. Which I think is, again, it just kind of stood out to me. And like, maybe he's calling him the main DP because he also mentioned that he is cognizant of the salary hierarchy among a team. And he said he did mention that he had issues with that when he got here. We know how fucked up the cap sheet was. And like, again, it's kind of human nature, even if you don't wear it on your sleeve, that if you're an Owen Wolff maybe making 200,000 and there's somebody who's not playing that's making 800K to $1 million, depending on certain contracts that we've had over the last few years, you can certainly see the human nature, the little green-eyed monster or verde-eyed monster, as it were, that could come out in somebody. So that was an aspect of the roster build or a consideration that a sporting director might take that I didn't really factor in.
Yeah. To me, it's like in a perfect world, yes. Would the guys who play the most, who contribute the most, be making the most? Yes. But like having someone like Owen Wolf produce and like using him as an example is not necessarily an outlier, but it is a situation where it's like we have a kid who's on a great deal, a homegrown deal, who is outperforming most of the other players on this team. But that's still, I just don't think like, yes, in a perfect world, if you can construct it all the way down, your best players getting paid the most, your second best players getting paid the second most, third, and then all the way down.
Right.
Yes, that would be super fucking ideal, but that's just not how it works. And I do, when I was listening to that as well, and he's talking about like having a guy in this bucket and everything, but he inherited a giant mess. And I can see how approaching that giant mess with, well, we want to structure our team with obviously the best players getting paid the most and then work our way down in regards to depth. And I do think that you've seen that from the contracts that he's been giving out and what we anticipated and expected from those types of players. But again, you take a look at a guy like Biru, who's obviously outplaying his figure right now for what he's producing at his level. So like, yes, there's going to be wins and losses in that entire conversation where it's like you're going to have guys who are outperforming that stuff and you're going to have guys who are technically, quote unquote, underperforming their salary expectations. But at the same time, if you don't have those upper tier guys that you did pay a lot for, then more of the focus would be shifted to some of these players who are making less, which I do think would not be helpful in regard to them putting up the counting stats that we've seen for a lot of these guys.
Well, and like you want some of your lower paid, right? The players that the perception is that they're backups. You want them to be not only pushing the starters, but also like if they're good enough to go and win more minutes, like Owen Wolf, right? That is the shining example that we can use here on the Austin FC roster build. Like you want some of that imbalance, right? Because that means you have really good players for cheap.
Yes.
So again, I just saying that to come back to him calling Brandon the main DP, that's where I just kind of like, reflecting on what he said throughout the almost hour and a half. It's like, I think he was saying main in the sense of he's our highest paid guy.
Is he?
I believe so.
I thought Mirtu was.
I think
that's why
Brandon Vasquez.
Seems contradictory to me because like when you said main and like then we brought it back to this example, I thought it was. Luckily, we have the North End podcast salary sheets to go through this. I'll just from the things that I saw, right, and I did bring up a couple episodes back. I think it was right after the Boloko news dropped, where it was just like, could we have not anticipated that a player with a family that's across the globe might have an issue when they come over here? And it seems, and I'm very glad for this answer that he gave, that the situation arose and presented itself out of the blue. This was not something that we could have anticipated with Boloko. This is what I garnered from what he said about the situation. So I thought that was good because I know that there's plenty of people out there right now with the pitchforks coming for Rodo. So I thought that it was an answer for what I was looking for in regard to, could we have seen this coming? And I believe the answer was no, and that this was a situation that nobody anticipated.
Well, I don't think if Nicky Boloko saw it coming, I don't think he comes to the States at the end of June, right? Like, I think this is something that I think arose, right? Like Rodo said, kind of out of the blue, and the player brought it to the club once he was here. And that was kind of exactly like the Boloko situation. And we did put out a short, so you can go to any of our socials and see Rodo's words about Nicky Boloko for yourself. But like, it was kind of exactly what we expected, right? It was like a personal situation, like they hinted at in the press release. And what I also like gleaned from his words about Boloko is talking about how he signed the pre-contract, right? Because in global football, if you are going to be a free agent in less than 6 months, you can already negotiate with your next team. And so he was like, we signed Boloko in January, which meant that we were negotiating with him and his agents or his representatives in like September, October, November, which I'm looking at my calendar right here. It says September 3rd, which means Rodo Borrell is potentially taking time away from negotiations with guys that we could be signing in July of next year right now. And he also pointed at that because those negotiations were taking place with like 8 games to go in the 2024 season, that there were midfielders that we were able to add in January, which if you go back, it's Ilya
Mm-hmm.
and Dubrsarski and Besard Sabovic that we added in that time frame, where like we didn't have those guys on our radar yet when we signed Boloko or when we were negotiating with Boloko. So because the fact that we did get some of that depth, regardless of your opinion as a fan, as a listener of the North End podcast, regardless of if you think that depth is, good enough or not right now, like that is a conversation to have. He did add enough bodies where we're fine not, being able to send Boloko back here. Although it's not going to feel like it this weekend during the international break.
And I mean, like I said, I just, kind of came to the defense there. Not that he needs it or anything, but I am disappointed to hear that we're not targeting a free agent here, because this situation that's about to be coming up versus SKC, you could have anticipated. You could have known. Mirtu obviously been with Albania time in and time out against Fatok, has been called up. Julio with the random call up. Danny, we've seen involved with Venezuela plenty of times. So like being super shorthanded now sucks. And I know that we're dealing with some more injuries in the midfield in regard to Sabo and Ilya, but like another body for this game would have been really nice. And to finish out this season, I wasn't anticipating bringing anybody in that you're going to have here for an extended period of time, but like we clearly need bodies this week. And like, this is a game. It's the same kind of principle where it's like, you saw this on the schedule, like Montreal, and it's just like that's got to be 3 points because this team sucks.
Yeah, well, and he did kind of talk a little bit about the Montreal game just to put a bow on the salary discussion we were having earlier. BV 3.5 guaranteed comp and Mirtu's 2.225 million. So he is like, if you're just going by salary hierarchy, and Brandon Vasquez is our main DP then. So. A couple other things here. He did mention the words from Mirtu that we were nitpicking when he was calling every game a final after the Montreal loss. So he said he knew that Mirtu's heart is in the right place. Like he understands what he's saying, but he also said the reality is your playoff push starts with the season opener, and that's how we should be approaching the season. And so I think that's fair. Like it's not, it's 1 of 34, no matter when it's played.
For sure.
And so you drop points to Montreal at beginning of the season in February, it hurts you just as much as now. You just don't know by the standings that they're that shit.
Got that.
He also said he was happy with the response from the team to get the win against San Jose, but that he lamented the fact that we dropped points that we shouldn't have over the previous 3 games. And Rodo complained about the penalty against Houston and the contribution that could have had to the snowball effect of those 3 weeks. But he also said, that's not an excuse because we did not finish out that game. So similar thoughts from Rodo to I think most of the fan base at this point regarding the Houston collapse.
I mean, you had bad luck versus Houston, you had bad luck versus FC Dallas, and you were awful versus Montreal. And there's no excuse for that.
He also reiterated that Owen Wolff has gone through what he sees as unfair criticism over the years. But this is something he added that's a little bit new when talking about Owen. He said that we also need to be, in the present day, measured in how we heap the praise on Owen now for the mental side of things. Like you cannot get too high when you're in this great run of form. And I thought that was a great point. That there's something that I don't think we've really mentioned here on the pod.
I mean, it's very, very stoic there. It's like, as someone who reads plenty of stoic books, this is some stoicism right there. So as you can tell, I have been very level-headed about Owen Wolff and how well he's been this year, and definitely haven't called him the best player of the league multiple times over. So yes, let's hope these things don't go to his head. But Owen, just keep doing what you're doing, man. Just keep rocking.
Yeah. Also talked about the work that the club does behind the scenes to integrate family members for new arrivals to the club, to Central Texas. He said, wives and girlfriends have a huge effect on the happiness of a player, right? Because you could be loving being with the team, loving where you are in form. And if, wife isn't happy, you're probably going to have some issues. So he did go into some detail saying like we have lots of activities that bring the significant others of the players, the families of the players together. And they also have other resources for them to feel comfortable and kind of spread their roots, so to speak, when they arrive here in Austin, whether that's connecting them again with other families of teammates, or maybe if you're coming internationally, right, maybe of some resources, some outlets that are of similar nationality to you to get you some of that familiarity and comfortability here in the city. Landon, appropriately, was the person that brought up the kind of the cap situation, right? Especially with the TAM, which was our biggest question about the roster build as it stands right now, is why did we not use the available TAM? And like, to be honest, man, this is where I still have questions, and I wish I could have been in there to press him a little bit more on this subject, because he did bring up and he had papers with him, he had little charts, GAM charts of everybody's kind of GAM coffers at the beginning of this window. We had 40,000 in GAM, which is, of course, one of the lower figures in the league. And he read off that list of the other teams' totals of GAM, right? That's between, some teams have none if you're LA Galaxy. Some teams have 4+ million, right? Yeah. If you're selling. One thing I would have pressured him on is how many of those teams that you're reading off that have 7 figures plus of GAM left, how many of those took the 2-4 GAM route? And that GAM is going to go away if they don't use it here this season, because you get that extra 2 million with that roster path.
Yeah.
And again, so I'm sympathetic to not having a ton of GAM left, but the unused TAM doesn't factor in there. It does not. And the only way you could not have brought a TAM player in this window is if the actual cap budget space that you had left was less than $150,000. So again, I think it came down to, we didn't get a very clear answer on why there wasn't a TAM player yet, outside of like, we didn't have something that matched for us, that fit for us at the time. And of course, like we say frequently, like, there are always going to be plans, things in the works that we just won't know until they happen. And if they don't happen, we'll never know about negotiations or scouting of certain players. They could literally have already signed a TAM player for the winter on a pre-contract that we don't know about. So I do expect that the TAM spots to start to fill up here in the winter window, not all at once, or using it all at once rather. But that was just some of the discussion he had. And actually, and going back to what you were talking about, BV, and like being able to use that spot no matter where it was, right? Just for a warm body, he said, we were looking at using the SEI slot. But the reality is that there are not a ton of players that are going to come to Austin for 3 months. And the ones that will are players that are not playing or have no team. And also the rule in the league where you cannot loan a player intra-league that is older than 24. So it is a very limited, it's a limited number of players. He said we did look intra-league, but the possibilities that were available, we didn't feel like they would make a difference for us. And I also think something that he didn't say directly, but probably factored in, is like, if like CJ right now is like a backup striker for us, right? Like, if you're looking intra-league trade, how many center forwards are teams going to be willing to loan us for the end of the season that are going to be better than CJ? Probably not. There's probably none. Because how many teams are willing to loan a young center forward right now? If you're tanking, you're probably just going to play that guy on your own team the minutes that you want to play him. That's just how I kind of interpreted that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we saw it happen with Montreal, and especially if that rule is you have to be younger than 24, I could absolutely see a lot of teams not being interested and trying, quote unquote, giving up on one of their players for better lack of a word there. But man, I just still wish that we had some more players for this game coming up.
Of course, for
sure. Yeah. And I get that, but I thought Landon was great. I thought everyone who got invited to that press conference did a really good job.
2 more things that I wanted to mention here, E. He did talk about analytics and kind of the underlying numbers, right? All the pieces of the puzzle that we like to discuss here. He said soccer is one of the sports that you can base less on analytics in Rodo's opinion. Other sports, you can base much more on that when signing a player. But for him, analytics are a supporting tool, but never a decision-making tool. That's, quote, my experience. The, quote, eye of the scout and knowledge of the different levels and the profiles of players that you're looking at are the most important. And those decisions are supported by analytics. And then he ended with, big long quote here, I made a huge decision coming here, and I'm very happy with this decision. I'm happy with how things are going. They could be better, of course. They could be worse as well. The aim is progressing and getting better every time. The ownership group is very ambitious. We are very happy with the current chemistry between the staff and the team, and I'm just looking forward to keep developing and improving the team every single time. So just some of the highlights there, at least in our eyes, from today's presser with sporting director Rodolfo Borrell. You can go see that in full on the club's YouTube page. Like I said earlier, we've got a clip out. I'm sure there's other clips coming from other outlets as well. And we'll revisit it in the future if we need to, E. But about 20 minutes of that Rodo press conference recap here. I think that's enough for me. Anything else for you on this?
No.
All right, so let's move into our preview of this, again, a Sunday match here, Sunday night soccer, E, for Austin FC and Sporting KC. Probably not the marquee matchup that the league wishes they could be highlighting here, going head-to-head with Week 1 NFL Sunday, but I'm excited for it, my friend. Looking at some of the historical head-to-head numbers between these two, this is one of the better records that we have against our Western Conference foes. From the 10 all-time meetings between Austin and SKC, Austin has won 6 of those matches, including, of course, on opening day of this year, the 1-0 victory, clean sheet on opening night, courtesy of Osman Bukhari's headed goal there at the back post in the south end, coming off the boot of Owen Wolf. Just one draw, though, so Sporting has 3 wins in this all-time series. And Sporting has won 3 of the 5 times that we have played them at Children's Mercy Park. There is 1 draw, and our lone victory up there on the road was, of course, in the magical 2022 season. I believe the first goal, I didn't even watch the highlights of this, but I believe the first goal in that match was Alex Ring dribbling or like taking a shot from like 25 yards out. It rolled on the ground right through John Polskamp's leg.
Yes.
And the fact that we get to see John Polskamp again this weekend, I am always excited to see young John. But since we last saw them back in February, I think the biggest move for this club is clearly the fact that they parted ways with Peter Vermees finally on March 31st. So it was early in this season and unsurprising given the downturn that this club has taken over the last few seasons. 6 winless games to start the year. That saw Vermees go out from, again, the coach and sporting director position. And then that installed as interim coach Kerry Zavagnin, who was a ex-U.S. national teamer, defensive midfielder, also a long career in MLS, and it was 205 appearances with Kansas City back in the KC Wizards days. So 205 appearances for the club, 21 caps for the U.S. national team. He had been an assistant with Coach Vermees since 2009 after he retired following the 2008 season. So Coach Zavagnin here, knows the club very well, been there for the better part of 2.5 decades now. Clearly, it hasn't gone well. That he couldn't, Coach Zavagnin couldn't just bring in some new players to improve this roster. And so Sporting currently sitting 13th in the Western Conference, 27 points from their 28 matches. They score it just fine. 43 goals scored for their 28 games, but they concede it. The sweetest of anybody, 57 goals conceded is the most in the league. So even with our shorthanded nature this weekend, this is a winnable game.
I agree. And I think that this is going to be much more about us. This conversation right now is going to be much more about us and what we're going to do and how we're going to approach this matchup. But as you mentioned, this team just really struggles on the defensive side of the ball. Only 4 teams have given up over 50 goals. SKC, one of them, San Jose, Galaxy, and St. Louis up there too. So the bottom of the Western Conference for these 3 clubs in SKC, St. Louis, and the Galaxy. And, I think Polskamp is one of, if not the worst keeper in the league. He is really poor. He is really shaky, and they're the center backs and the defensive line in front of him are also nothing to write home about. On the offensive side of the ball, you have one of the most dangerous players in the league, in my opinion, in Dejan Joveljić. He's a fantastic goal scorer. We've seen him plenty of times score at Q2 Stadium, whether it was for the Galaxy or I don't know if he got one. No, he didn't get one versus us with that opening matchup there in that 1-0 shutout. But he's dangerous, man. And Daniel Shalloway, I think, is also pretty talented, another underrated kind of player on this team here. So if you can be stout and be strong in our formation on the defensive side of the ball, you can definitely beat this team while being shorthanded. So I'm looking at this, man, like we said, if this was a regular game where we didn't have guys out with injury, we didn't have guys out playing for their national team and everything like that, again, this would be I'd be pulling the lever on this one. I agree. This is a lever pulling game for me because this is a club that is akin to your Montreals and the other teams of this league that are just not that good. And they've been up and down all season long, like you said, with turmoil, with roster turnover. I don't even know how long Vermees had been there at that point, but he is a staple in MLS. Yeah. So this is just a team that's just really not that good. And I don't know what they have to play for at this point. I really don't. Some people are playing for pride at this point. Some people are playing to get to the next season, see what they have.
They're technically not eliminated. So.
Technically, yes, I guess, but
I think they have to go kind of 6 for 6, maybe 5 for 6.
And you look at their last 5 matchups, right? They stormed back versus Colorado to get a 4-2 win, but prior to that, they played 4 quality teams. And if Austin wants to be considered as a quality team in this league, this is a team you still have to beat despite being shorthanded. 5-2 loss to the Sounders, 3-1 to Orlando City, 2-0 to San Diego FC, 3-0 to the Whitecaps. So when they play good teams, they get their ass beat. And then you have a team like Colorado, who we mentioned and have kind of targeted as a team that's kind of on the downturn here, which makes us feel really good about our opportunity to move up on this table. And they scored 3 goals, I believe, in 10, 15 minutes in that game there. Yeah. So they came back with a flurry, but they'll give it up, man. They really will. And they do not have average goalkeeping back there with Pulskamp.
Yeah, you mentioned Joveljić, right? 16 goals. That is good for tied for third in the Golden Boot race next to Evander and Ty Baribo, only behind Sam Surridge and Lionel Messi. And 3 of those guys on the North End best ball team. So teaser for what's coming in the nonsense. Other personnel notes that I have here, in the summer window, they did a little swappity-doo on their back line. They actually bought out Danny Rosero, right? 31-year-old center back who I always kind of considered over the last couple seasons kind of their man in the middle there on the back line. He was a guy who was a threat offensively on set pieces and physical and sizable on defense, where it was really tough to get one over on him. But they did acquire on loan 24-year-old Mexican center back Alan Montes on loan from Necaxa in Liga MX. That is the younger brother of longtime Rayados and Mexican national team center back Cesar Montes. So they have got Alan for the remainder of the season with a purchase option. So we may be seeing Montes on the back line there going forward for Sporting. And they kind of have this little Liga MX pipeline, right? They had Alan Pulido there for years. And that's something that we have not had. And jumping back to Rodo, one of the things he did say today in Spanish that I saw translated was, it's hard for us to get Mexican players because, quite frankly, they are very expensive. But Sporting has got it done a couple times here in the last few years. And listening to some of the Sporting media, I did note nearly all of them, they had a double header that day where both the KC Current, the women's team in the NWSL, and Sporting KC were playing on the same day. And listening to them talk about some of them went to both games and I think had to leave 10 minutes early from one and show up a couple minutes late to the other. But it gave me hope for what we could one day have here, not necessarily on the same day, because I would love for a potential NWSL team in Austin to also play at the Q. But that gave me kind of hopes and dreams for what it could be to get a team in that league here in the ATX. Jumping back to Sporting and some of their, I guess, personnel, how they're doing, how the fans are feeling about them. Manu Garcia, right, as we can pull up the roster build here for those on the YouTubes, one of their 2, this is a 2-4 GAM build. So you see Sporting coming in, or in May, having 1.9 million in GAM remaining. Manu Garcia is out right now with a hip, or actually I think it was a hamstring or quad issue. He could be back this weekend, but there is no way he starts being out multiple weeks with a soft tissue injury in his lower body. So you have seen Santiago Munoz filling in for Garcia. One of the outlets saying that Munoz has been playing everywhere, a quote, jack of all trades type of piece for them right now. 23-year-old Mexican midfielder who is currently on loan from Santos Laguna. So you see more Liga MX ties between Sporting and south of the border. They also have a purchase option on Munoz at the end of this season. And Munoz spent time with Newcastle on loan in the 21-22 season, mostly played with their second team, but this is a kid who has a little bit of a pedigree in their midfield. John Pulskamp, again, I think he's straight up bad. He's below average at best.
Yes.
Good showing last week against Colorado, though. He saved a Navajo penalty and then saved the rebound shot as well. So he's got a little bit of confidence coming out of that one. In the furious comeback that you mentioned, the 19-year-old homegrown Jacob Bartlett got his first career assist off the bench. And Shapi Suleimanov, who's one of the acquisitions from the offseason window that we focused on coming into the season opener, has been really up and down with more of the latter, I think, this season. And multiple outlets, I heard fan outlets complaining that he's very one-footed. So one thing I'll be watching if Suleimanov is out there is which way are our defenders shading him in one-on-one situations? Because if their fans are complaining about it, it is certainly on the scouting report here. Last couple of things. Eric Tommy, right, who is one of their TAM players. They do have 6 TAM players, although Danny Rosero was one of them and he got bought out. Eric Tommy has missed most of the summer matches with a hip injury, but he was active on the bench as an unused sub against the Rapids last Saturday. So I think them being at home, I bet Eric Tommy does see time off the bench here this week. And that is certainly a body coming in with fresh legs that we'll have to contend with likely in the second half. And thinking about the international window, unsurprising that a team that low in the table doesn't have a ton of call-ups, but they do have 2. One is Zoran Basong going up to Canada, and then Ian James, who is with the U17s here in the U.S. youth system. And Basong has been a consistent starter for them, right? Like, he's not a guy that's going to get the headlines week in and week out, but I think he's somebody that certainly their fans are saying, like, underrated missing piece here in their midfield this weekend. And Ian James had actually just started at center back last week following the departure of Danny Rosero, and center back Jansen Miller apparently was in poor form. Some of the fans thought that benching was just because of his poor form. He did sub in for James 30 minutes in. So I think we get Miller and Robert Volader as the center back pairing. Volader, a U22 guy, mainstay on that back line for multiple seasons now. But it could be Montes in there for Miller if the coach is not, high on what Miller has been doing of late. So that's what I got for their personnel. Anything else for you on the Sporting side of things? Again, there's nobody that's going to jump off the page. Yeah. But they do have a couple pieces that can hurt you.
I'm glad you brought up Tommy, because I'm definitely worried about him. I think he's a quality player and someone that they're going to rely on. And as far as their back line goes, man, I think they're just searching for anything. They're nearly 12 XG conceded over the second place team there in the Colorado Rapids. They've given up 9 penalty kicks this season, which leads the league. So they're just sloppy, man. And I'm not overly concerned about their back line, anything like that. If you can control Joveljić, I think you can go ahead and consider yourself to be feeling really, really good about your opportunity here to win this game on the road. But I'm definitely ready to talk about us, because that's where it gets interesting for me.
Yeah, man, the last thing I'll say on Sporting is, like, them giving up the most goals, again, is not a mirage.
No.
They are leading expected goals conceded. They not only lead the league, they are 10.4 expected goals conceded more than the second place team.
I rounded that up to 12, but that's what I was saying.
Yeah. You can tell I'm listening to you while you're talking. Talking about us here, E.
Yeah.
International player schedules. If you do want to keep up with these guys, Azuni, again, next Tuesday, you can watch at 1:45 p.m. Central, against Latvia, World Cup qualifier on Fubo and VIX. And Fubo and VIX both have 7-day free trials. So if you want to watch me or two out there on Tuesday, you can do so. Julio Cascante out there with Costa Rica, 9 p.m. on Friday against Nicaragua. That's Paramount Plus. 9 p.m. next Tuesday against Haiti, also Paramount Plus, both of those World Cup qualifiers. Svatok, 1:45 p.m. on Friday against France. That's FS2 and VIX. 11 a.m. next Tuesday against Azerbaijan on Tubi, which is free, and Amazon Prime Video, along with Fubo and VIX. Venezuela with Danny Pereira, 6:30 p.m. on Thursday against Argentina. That's on Universo in Spanish, along with Fubo in English and on VIX. And then 6:30 p.m. next Tuesday against Colombia. That is on pay-per-view. So probably I probably will not be buying that game. And then Liberia for Jimmy, 2 p.m. on Thursday against Tunisia, 11 a.m. Monday against Malawi. I think I butchered that there, but both of those on ESPN Plus. So there's your international TV guide for the next week. And let's talk about what that shit is going to do to us here on Sunday, because we had also mentioned, right, Micah Burton's with the U20s. Irvin Torres was with the U19s. But Irvin Torres, I said on Sunday, I think he could pull out of that camp because we've seen guys do it before. Reportedly from the U.S. youth ranks, he pulled out due to injury. And I think injury is a creative way to say that he's going to be with the first team on Sunday in Kansas City. Again, we'll have to get a short-term call-up for Irvin because he doesn't have a first-team deal yet. But I also think we might not get any free agent signings with the first team, but Irvin turns 18 in November. I could see him getting his first-team supplemental before the end of the season, or maybe right after the regular season ends. And again, I do think he's up with the first team here this weekend.
Agreed.
It's not just those international guys, right? Of course, no Brandon Vasquez. I would put Ilie as doubtful at best.
Yep. I give him the tramadol. I don't care. Give him an
epidural. Shoot him up. Okay.
Hurts, whatever you need, brother. You need a bottle of Volata. You hit up Richie. We'll get you ready to go, bro. Well, he's got to. We're going to be so thin, and that's why I definitely agree with you that Irvin's going to be in there because that midfield is depleted right now, and that's the position that we have felt most confident about in our depth. Yeah.
And so Sabovic, of course, I would say questionable at best, right? Because of the Sunday kickoff, that means that the pregame press availability is Friday instead of Thursday. So I'm sure we will get questions from the media scrum there asking about an update on Bessard. And again, hopefully he's good to go. They said they didn't think it was serious, but I still think it's questionable at best
for sure
if you have to come off so quickly as he did. So that leaves you with 16 first teamers available for this match. And that includes Riley Thomas.
Yeah.
So you got 4 spaces on the bench. Again, I think one of them will be Irvin. One would be Jimmy, but he's on international duty.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I could see Jorge coming up for this. I could see maybe another forward, right? But I don't know who deserves it out of that group. I'll say this. I do not think that we have a full bench, and I think it's more likely that we leave 2 or 3 spots open on the bench than we have a full 20.
You're going to get your answer on what this club actually thinks of the potential of the second team players.
That is one thing. Sorry to interrupt. That is one thing that Rodo talked about, and it was literally all due respect, but a scoff. And he's told us before, right, that nothing has changed. He's the gap is giant.
Yeah.
And he once again pointed out, we won the title in 2023. How many of those guys are in MLS?
Yeah.
It's just CJ.
Yep.
So sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's only a very select few guys that I think we are even possible to pull up. And I think it's Irvin and I think it's maybe Jorge.
Yeah, for sure. And again, maybe along with those 2 guys, maybe you're pulling up Antonio Gomez for his 4th and final call-up of the season. We may get some information on Friday with the second team's lineup that comes out before the first team actually announces the short-term agreements because the second team kicks off at 3 p.m. on Friday. But again, man, you're not going to be able to pull anybody up. You're like, oh, well, he can start, or I feel great playing him a bunch of minutes. So I did come up with a lineup, that I think we may see this here, and I do think this is what I would like to see.
Mm-hmm.
Stuver in net, Dessler right back, Heinzike one of the center backs. I pulled Guilherme Biru, and if you're watching on the YouTube, you can see this little graphic we got here. I pulled Guilherme Biru in as the second center back because one of those 16 available first teamers is Mateja Djordjevic. And while I do think he can play this weekend, I don't think he can get out there and go a full 90. And so I don't think you're going to start a center back that you're planning on taking out later. We may see that. I just think it's much more likely you shift Biru in and you start John Kolmanic out there on the left. What are your thoughts on the back line?
Man, I really don't love the overlap of Kolmanic and Gallagher on that back unit there, but I'm not really entirely sure what else you can do here. I do want to say that I think being cautious and defensive is the winning formula here. I don't think you want to be overly pushed up. I don't think you want to be pushing bodies forward. As we mentioned, their defensive unit will give it up relatively easily. So I think remaining compact in our and relying on the defensive unit, which we have all season long, is where you're going to get your bread buttered. But yeah, I mean, this is going to have Johnny pushing up that wing. I think I would prefer. I think in possession, I think I would prefer having Johnny not have to cover as much ground, have him slide into the midfield, and then push Owen out wide to be more of your winger in that situation. I also don't love moving our best player in this lineup out of his true position.
I got a spoiler for you. We're not going to be able to configure something you're going to love.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying I think maybe my priority one outside of being more defensive is keeping Buka where he likes to play, and that's on the right wing. And for audio only listeners, out above the back line, three-man midfield I have here, Duber Sarski with Owen Wolf and Diego Rubio in front of him. And then I have Gallagher on the left wing, Hader Obrian on the right wing with Osman Bukhari up top. And sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to give the full lineup here to the people who aren't watching on the YouTube. And like my thinking there is you keep your two chance creators in there with Owen and Diego. And I agree with you when you said earlier about like you try to go more defensive this game, you sit back. And to hit these guys on the counter, to be able to have Wolf and Rubio there, Gallagher, Obi, and Buka all up top to be able to release on a potential counter and score in transition. If you get out of here 1-0, I mean, that would be like almost, I think to the T, what they're going to try to do here. I don't think we come out as the aggressors. I think I wholeheartedly agree with what you said there. Yeah, and I just think also when you look at that right side of the pitch that has been so good all season long, Obrian does not have the chemistry with Dessler. He does not have the spatial awareness to work that side that Dessler and Buka have. I don't expect him to be at that level. He's not the same quality player as Bukhari, but I want to keep that intact because that at least gives you some more cohesion that we've seen throughout the year, which does open the door for a potential CJ start at the 9. I know he hasn't had one. We've been wondering what that is going to look like for him moving forward because we're right there with Rodo, really, where the gap is large and he's a bit of a tweener where he's too good for next pro and he's not at the level of that we need him to be at for MLS. So in my perfect world, not perfect world, but with what is available to us, you keep that right side solidified with what we've had, and then you find an answer at the 9 there. And maybe it's Obrian. I don't know. At least you have the speed there. And if you're going to be defensive and try to hit them on counters, at least that gives you multiple guys with a lot of speed to try to get balls over the top.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right. Like you could also see Diego Rubio up top because he was a 9.5 for most of his career. And Robert Taylor is still alive, but like hasn't played the last 2. So it's very hard for me to predict that he's going to be put into the starting 11, but we are up against it here with the depth, man, given the international break. And so again, I expect to see something crazy and that's what you're going to have to do here. You got to mix and match and get creative in this spot that we find ourselves in here on Sunday. Anything else for you on this, man? Again, I think we could sit here and debate different weird tweaks to this for hours, but like
we'll save that for Sunday when people don't have to listen to it. But I do like the idea of maybe Rubio at the 9 and then rolling the dice with Robbie Taylor in the midfield. That's the last thing I'll say on it.
No, I don't hate that either. So one thing left to do here, E. How much is Austin FC winning by on
Look,
Sunday?
I've been working on this all week.
Okay.
Dejan Joveljić, Novak Djokovic, Nikola Jokic. Don't matter. Austin FC 1-0 in 90.
Yeah. Oh man, we did it last week. We almost hit it with the 2-1 dual prediction. We took the 3 with that own goal there, but I think we're gonna double up again here this weekend, man. I got a 1-0 as well. We would certainly take that. We don't care how you get it done, boys. If you can get 3 points this week, we will absolutely take it.
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's last business day.
Last business day here on episode 253 of the North End podcast. And E, I've said it a couple times already. I don't know why this is a 3 p.m. Central kickoff out there at the National Sports Center up in Blaine, Minnesota. Loons 2 here, currently 8th in the Western Conference. I have this pulled up on the away table right now. So for the YouTube viewers, there's the actual table. Minnesota in that final 8th and final playoff spot at the moment, above North Texas SC. On the tiebreaker, Austin in 6th with 35 points. These two clubs are very close in the all-time head-to-head here. 1 win for Austin, 2 wins for the Loons, and 4 draws, with each team winning 2 of those 4 shootouts. So Minnesota, again, everything is in balance for both of these teams. Austin, 29 goals for, 29 against. Minnesota United 2, 37 goals for, 37 against. So something has to give here between these two clubs. Again, earlier this season, we saw them twice at home. That was a 1-0 victory for Loons 2 back on March 14th. I want to say that was the second game of the season. Little bit of a letdown there. And then in penalties, Austin FC 2 comes out with the additional point back on May 23rd. In terms of the personnel you should be watching for if you are tuned into this match on Friday afternoon, Loons 2 is led in scoring by number 39 forward Luke Hilly. 10 goals, no assists in his 19 appearances. So he ain't giving it up, boys. Luke Hilly gets it. He's going to shoot it. Number 91, another forward, Logan Dorsey, 6 goals, 2 assists in just 14 appearances. So Dorsey has been very productive for this team. And Loons 2 led in assists by number 34, midfielder Kurt Kalov. 1 goal, 7 assists in his 18 appearances, which are all starts. And none of those 3 guys are first teamers here for the Loons. So this is very much just a next pro roster. You see like Masanvi down there. DJ Taylor, I think, played in one of those games against us earlier in the year. But I don't think we should expect too many first teamers down with Loons 2 for this one. Outside of U22 Owen Jen, who just played 90 with them last week, but Jen has been with the first team through the majority of the summer. So I would expect him to be back up with their first team here this weekend. But if Owen Jen is out there, then that is hands down the most talented player on the Loons 2 side. And so which guys will Austin be missing? That is something that we don't know yet either. And you probably will not know until the lineup drops around 2 p.m. on Friday. Very unique road record for Austin right now, E, which is why I had that toggled on when I pulled this up on the screen here. 11 road matches this season for Austin FC 2. 1 win, 2 losses, 8 draws in 11 road matches for FCito. And they have won just 3 of those road shootouts. So again, it's going to be with the turmoil caused by the international break. You're going to have some mix-ups here with the starting 11. No Micah Burton, no Jimmy. You would think Irvin would be up with the first team. So I don't really have lineup predictions here, man. I think we can go right to score predictions unless you have anything else to add.
I'll just add that it's interestingly enough, Minnesota has not drawn at home. So we super draw team on the road and they don't draw at home. So let's see what happens here. But yeah, I'm concerned about the lineup, of course, but I'm much more concerned about the first team. So
well, one thing left to do. How much is Austin FC 2 winning by on the road this Friday?
Well, I don't have a nice little, catchphrase to do for this one. So I guess it's going to be a little boring. Man, give me 1-1 PK shootout win. I'll go ahead and do that. 2 points on the road there. I like that.
All right. I'm doubling up myself here this week. I'm going to say 1-0 on the road. You get them back for the 1-0 we took at home in March, and we serve them back a 1-0 here with a road victory. So don't care how you get it done, boys. Just bring us back the 3 points here on Friday. Get our weekend started right, E, and we will close it out with a little bit of the nonsense. We felt it coming, and we have inched into first place in the Verde Best Ball League. E, back-to-back wins, 44 points. You pick up 12 points on We Are Austin, so we are now 1 point ahead of them in the title race. Soccer-wise, up by 3 points on Verde All Day in the race for third. Moon Tower and the Verde Pendant dropping some points there that week. So we are actually going into a double game week here for Best Ball. So we will not have another score update until right before that Minnesota match. So that is going to be a blitz of a week there. Road Dallas, road Minnesota, home Seattle. And then E, with the picks, the underdog, like you mentioned on Sunday's episode, the underdog entry comes through. We add 4.1 units to our total there. And then you hit both of the picks at the books, our little both teams to score parlay, the Union beating Cincy on the road. But the goal scorers actually don't come through for us all that well this week. We still profit, so we turn things around. You in the losing streak. Now plus 23.1 units on underdog, plus 47.12 units at the books, plus 70.22 units overall on the season. So we will take that. Short slate this weekend, just 4 MLS games, but we will have a picks article out at thenorthendpodcast.com along with the match preview article. You can catch all that on your Saturday morning here by going to thenorthendpodcast.com. E, anything else for you here before we shut it down?
No, sir.
All right, everybody, we appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 253 of the North End Podcast. We are back on Monday next week following the Sunday game against Sporting KC to recap that match for the first team, recapping the second team's match, and, of course, talking about everything else that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We will do the same, and we'll see you back here on Monday for another episode of the North End Podcast. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.